Hey everybody, this is Drew with MicaSense. Welcome to our episode 1 of the MicaSense podcast. With me today is my co-host Stephen Mangum.
Hey Drew, thanks for organizing this podcast. Yeah, we're gonna have a great conversation today with our colleague Erik De Badts, who is our salesperson in Latin America.
So Erik has been on the team here since I think 2016. He's been working with MicaSense since 2016, and he came on like kind of in a more official capacity over the last year. And as Steven said, he's worked in, he manages Latin America, but he's also working with some European countries, I think Spain and the Netherlands, right? Because you're a native Dutchman.
Yeah, that's right.
No, Belgium.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'm born in Belgium, but my parents are Dutch, so that makes me a Dutchman as well. That's how it goes. But that's already now 12 years in Latin America. So actually, I don't know if I can even get used to the way they do things in Europe. I'm used to how things are getting done here in Latin America. And now I live here in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And this is my home base right now. So yeah, thanks for the initiative, and let's talk about some multispectral mapping with drones. Nice topic, nice new topic.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you've been involved in multispectral imaging for a really long time, relative to the drone-based multispectral and imaging market lifespan. You actually had a Red Edge like way back when, right? Can you tell us more about when you first started using the Red Edge and maybe some of those early years experiences?
Yeah, the idea was actually to make maps of small areas, because that was done with satellites. I'm talking about like 10 years back in time or even more. So the whole concept of a drone was still like something that the US military was using, and it was not really used for civil applications, and even less to make maps. Lots have changed since then. It's actually only been like 6 or 7 years that drones are like everywhere. Before that was like complicated issue. So yeah, I used to work with another multispectral camera already in Holland, and when I moved to Latin America, to Argentina, I kept on trying to put up a business using multispectral cameras. So that wasn't such a big success in the beginning, but in the end, I found quite a niche, which was like mounting the multispectral cameras on manned airplanes.
Oh, interesting.
So that was nice, because here, especially in Argentina and also in Uruguay and in Brazil, fields are like very big. It's like 100, 200, 500 hectares. It's big here. It's like in the Midwest in the US, and it's hard to do that with a drone, and it's easy to do it with a plane. So the thing was to find out to fly a grid with a plane and how to put a camera on it in a safe way. So that was actually the real problem, because how I came to MicaSense, I used to have another Tetracam, like one of the really first multispectral cameras available, and I had a job in Brazil, and we needed to fly like 1,000 hectares, and I was really tired after a long trip, because I put it in Google Maps. How do I get to that farm in Brazil? It was like Google Maps said that's like a 6-hour drive, so I did that, and it was like 12 hours. So I got there exhausted, and I needed to put the multispectral sensor on the plane, and yeah. We put it on.
Was it 6 hours because, or was it 12 hours because you got lost, or was it 12 hours because Google Maps just isn't as accurate in South America?
Well, at that time it wasn't that accurate, and also it doesn't count the time you need to spend on the border, and it doesn't calculate the traffic you can have, because it's not highways, it's just a normal road, and you just spend hours behind some truck at 60 kilometers an hour. So Gotcha. That goes slow. Yeah. So once I got there, I asked for a plane to have like a type of Cessna, because in order to mount the multispectral camera, under a manned plane, you need to have the space to do it. So I say, okay, I can do it with a plane with the wings on top of it. So I got there, and it was a plane because the farmer had his own plane. That happens here sometimes, with the wings on the belly. So it was really hard to find a way to attach the camera to the plane. So we did it anyway, start flying, and then after like 20 minutes, I hear a sound like boom. So I lost the camera. Searched for it. Yeah, it was like my working horse got lost, and that was a problem, and there was no way to get it back. It just fell down somewhere in the field. No way to find it back, and even if I find it back, it would have been like in thousands of pieces. So then I found on the internet this small startup, which was called MicaSense. So I sent an email at that time. It was like 2015, maybe. I think MicaSense existed like a couple of months or just 1 year. And I sent an email. Can I buy this camera? And they were really surprised. I think Gabriel at that time was it that answered the email and said, "Are you making money with these cameras?" Say, "Yeah." "Oh, that's unbelievable. Okay, I will send you a camera. Just send us the data." So I had the Red Edge number 12 serial number in my possession, and that was great. Great camera. We made some great data, and I could do a really nice project for a very large, like one of the biggest landowners in Uruguay, and they had like 40,000 hectares, and he wanted to have everything flying. It was mainly soybeans, but also some winter wheat, and that's something we could do. And there were the really first maps we did with an airplane, so that was like flying at 3,000 feet high to manage to fly such a big area. And since the Red Edge has a GPS on it, and you can set the altitude when it needs to start taking pictures, and I had no way to control the camera. The way we did it, like we did in one flight, like 4 or 5 fields. In between the fields, we lowered the altitude with the plane so that the camera stops taking pictures. And then once we get to the next field, go up again, so it starts taking pictures again. So that was really the one of the first projects we had here. And I think at MicaSense, that was like the data we used for the first year to show around what you can do with this camera. So that in the end, it was a good deal.
Yeah, I think we're still using data sets that you collected that year for marketing purposes, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So when
anyway,
you said you flew winter wheat, right? Like a big winter wheat field. What was the deliverable in that case? I mean, how did you process the data? How did you make it viewable for the farmer or whoever was getting it?
In the beginning, there were no real photogrammetric software available like we now have, like Metashape or Pix4D, and it was just like using programs to make panos,
like a point cloud.
Yeah, I know, panoramic pictures, but in 2 dimensions.
Right. Like for photography.
Field. Yeah, indeed, that's what we were using then. But at that time, the first version of Pix4D came out, and it was more or less something you could do with the Red Edge. It was still without the DLS, and if you fly for such a long time, the radiometric quality of the data wasn't the very best. So in the beginning, the deal with flying these winter wheat fields was like to make some recommendations for fertilization, but it was really in an early stage. So in the end, what it was used to was to accurately say how many hectares have been grown. And why did I need that? Because this big farmer, what he does is like he hires up fields. He has contracts with landowners, and then he plants his wheat on it. And the landowners, they get a part of like a third, or I don't know what's the real value they get as a rent for their field, based partially on the yield. So what I wanted to do is, first of all, know actually how much hectares on each field are actually producing, and based also on the NDVI of these fields, have just more accurate values on how much he needs to end up paying to the people that own the land.
So he was basically getting rid of like waterways and fence rows and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of stuff he was eliminating.
Also, but it also happens that because the terrain is a little bit hilly, so sometimes in a dry year on top of the hills the wheat doesn't grow well, or when it rains a lot on the lower places it happens as well that some areas that are supposed to produce are not producing. So we just wanted to adjust the difference between the size of the field and the area that actually is producing.
Gotcha. That's interesting. So was he using, you say he was like using it as sort of a yield correlator. I mean, he probably had a yield monitor in his combine too, right? Or
at
not?
that time, I'm not sure, but at that time he was really believing in agriculture, precision agriculture. So he hired like 4 people to dedicate it to precision agriculture. So actually it's called more site-specific agriculture, because precision is like plant-based and area-specific is like divide the field in manageable areas, and they just needed the data to work on that. So I was like hired to give them the basic information to give it as a input for the team they had. And it was also very much used as a marketing, because it was the first company in Uruguay using this kind of precision to say, hey, we are going to pay you better, or we're going to have better yields if you work with us, because we work with drones, multispectral data, aerial photography, field data, whatever.
Sure.
So at that time, it wasn't really clear if they could make more money with it, but it sounded good and it sells good.
Yeah, that's a big part of it seems like.
Yeah.
People want to show that they're taking technological initiative and being cutting edge. So that was like your first client, the winter wheat guy. What did you sort of move on to after that?
Well, after that, we started with as services, right? To get more into specialty crops. So that were the first trips to the wining area here in Argentina to fly vineyards. We got a very nice project to fly the citrus trees. Argentina is one of the, I think it's one of the biggest producers lemons. So they wanted to fly it all. But that was all very basic, It was actually, they wanted the data, they want to do it, but it wasn't really clear for them what to do with the data. So it was all trying out to see what we can take out of it. They want to see the maps, and were willing to pay for it, but it was not about the results, it was about start doing it. Same for forestry companies. They knew they suspected they can improve things, but they really didn't know how to do it. And there was also no plan at all on bringing the data to the field back to make some improvements into the field. It was, the beginning years, and people just trying out stuff, trying out new stuff like they do now still, but with other tools, because drones, now they know already what to expect from it.
Yeah, that seems to be a big step for, like you said, that still seems to be the case for a lot of people. They kind of have to be curious and then figure out what they can get out of it. I think we're getting to the point where people don't have to do that quite so often with some advanced software tools that are coming out from some companies, but for the most part, it's still kind of that process of capturing data and then seeing what kind of value they can drive from it.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be necessarily the drones. The good thing is that the drones gave actually a unit sensing, at least over here, because so many things have been promised with satellites that are going to change agriculture forever. And it was actually a big disappointment for many farmers, because they expected it too much, because they created too much expectations of what you can do with the satellites, not taking into account that at that time, when only Landsat was available, that comes over once every 2 weeks. And when it's cloudy, you don't have any data at all. So that was a problem. So the big thing of the drones was that you can get the data actually when you need it. at a very much higher cost. And the quality was in the beginning not always that good or as expected, but people wanted to be sure they can have the data, not depending on the clouds. So that was then. And I think it's the big achievements of the drones and the multispectral cameras that came with it to give a second opportunity to remote sensing, that farmers started again paying attention to the fact that they can have interesting data about the physiological status of their crops. What happened over later, and that's the situation we have now actually, is that the big fields, all the corn, the winter wheat, and the soybeans, they're not using drones anymore. Maybe just for some scouting, but not really into their processes. They are convinced of the use of the data, but now we have satellites, many more satellites available at a very low cost. So now almost every day, some satellite comes over and takes a picture of your field. So why are you going to fly? Because first of all, you don't need the resolution. The most important thing for the farmers here is to be sure to have data available. And that is what's happening now here, especially in Argentina, which is quite a sunny place with not so many cloud cover. On the other hand, in Brazil, which is similar, the agriculture to Argentina, very big fields, but it's always cloudy. So right now, drones are very much used, big drones, fixed wings that can fly thousands of hectares, are very much used to monitor the fields because of the clouds. While here it's more satellites. On the other hand, you have more specialty crops, smaller fields where high resolution is required, and drones are used.
So where are these, you mentioned the drones that can fly for hours and hours or for long periods of time. Where are those getting manufactured? Are they South America based, or what types of drones are those?
Yeah, well, actually now we're talking about Brazil. It's only about Brazil. Brazil is like another continent. You got South America, and then actually Brazil is something else. First of all, because they speak another language, and secondly, they have quite an interesting drone industry because they have very high import taxes for other kinds of drones, and they have their specific market needs of large fields and for agriculture. So they have some, like 3 or 4 very interesting fixed wing companies that build big drones that fly indeed hours and hours for photogrammetry, and they are mainly used for the cane industry, the sugar cane industry. That's a big one because Brazil, I don't know if the audience knows that, but they have a law that, I don't know the real share of it, but the gasoline, the cars charged on the cars has a big share of ethanol made from the sugar cane.
I remember hearing an argument about sugarcane, ethanol production with sugarcane, that it actually made sense as opposed to the corn ethanol production, because with corn ethanol production, there's an extra step in the process that has to turn, I think I'm saying this right, it has to turn the starch into sugar. And with sugarcane, you don't need that step because it's already sugar. And so it basically decreases the production cost, and it makes it more of an efficient process, so it actually pays for itself. But maybe I was just fed information that wasn't accurate. Who knows?
Well, initially it sounds like a good idea. On the other hand, do you really want to use thousands of square kilometers to produce gasoline? With the problems Brazil has.
Well, they have all that land in the north that's not being used for anything, right?
Yeah, just for some bugs. That's all. Well, it's interesting because in Brazil, it's still like a discussion whether what are we going to do with all that patch of forest. We say, hey, in the U.S. they are using all their land, they turned it all into agriculture. Why can't we do that? But anyway, it'll change. They'll get into the right style, into the right side of history.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I kind of can sympathize with them a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there were big chunks of the U.S. that were very, very well forested, had a lot of wildlife, and they don't anymore. And now that we're more environmentally conscious, we're concerned about Brazil handling the rainforest. I don't know. We don't have to solve that on this episode.
Well, no, we are not going to solve it now. But anyway, in Brazil, there is also a lot of there is a lot of knowledge and a lot of interest in not only managing forests but also for forest conservation. So that's something we do need to mention here, that there are many people concerned about the environmental issues in Brazil, and they are actually also using drones, sensors to determine biodiversity and even also map deforestation.
That's interesting. Yeah, it seems like forest management has increased in interest over the last year or two, especially with the release of the dual camera system.
Indeed, yeah, that's. I think we have a great future for us as a company with this product, because it really is an answer to a need in the market. Also here in Latin America, lots of projects to turn agricultural land back into forest land, or protect areas and to take more care of the environment, and that's how we follow them as well, giving the products we have, and deliver actually data to protect the environment.
So Erik, you deal with Europe as well as Brazil and Latin America. Do you see a different use cases among the continents? Do you see more research in Europe and more agriculture in South America, or do you see any? What's the compare and contrast of those two regions?
Lots of research is carried out in Latin America as well, because corporate research, I mean, also universities, but on a lower scale, because of the budgets, of course, aren't as high here as in Europe or in the US. But corporate research is being carried out here. I know here only in Argentina there are about 500 test sites that are also taking use of drones, because these companies like the Bayers and the Monsantos and the Syngentas, they all work here as well, and they take advantage of their to speed up their research, taking advantage of the both seasons, so they can work all year round. So that is being carried out over here. On the other hand, what you see here is that the profession of the agronomist is like, it's a good career here. You can make a good living as an agronomist. It's like, because it's a big industry over here, and competing industries like IT or other kind of industries aren't that developed here. So good people are working in agriculture here, very smart people, and these are the ones that end up buying drones and multispectral sensors and making good use of it. So what you don't see that many here is that, like, okay, the guy that buys a drone, start making some movies at a wedding, and then wants to fly the field of somebody and needs to get into agriculture from scratch. That's
I think we had a customer like that the other day. California photographer bought a camera.
Yeah, that's hard, and it's tough to tell them. It's not about the hardware you have. You have to know what you're doing, yeah. And even so, I think our product is now quite plug and play using a DJI drone. Nevertheless, going to the customers we're having now in Latin America that jump on this technology during the last 2 years, you have different kinds of agriculture here. You have very small scale agriculture, like survival agriculture. Then you have the bigger fields with commodities. Then you have lots of the historical plantations, from banana, dole, basically in Colombia, the north of South America and Central America, pineapples. And lately, during the last years, there is a lot of specialty crops that are now being produced in a very professional way. And then I'm talking about countries like Chile and like Peru. They are really upcoming agricultural countries for asparagus or blueberries or even lettuce, and they export it to the rest of the world just because they are in the other seasons to provide the European and the US market in wintertime with all the fruits and vegetables they can have. And they have now all their professionalized teams to boost the production, and that includes a drone and a multispectral sensor. So lately, I'm talking lots of times with these kind of people that work for these companies, and they have no idea at all about drones. So for them, it's like apparently a good deal to buy a DJI drone with a easy sensor on it, but they are doing very tough job. They need to give scientific results because they read the papers, the scientific papers, they read how things are done properly, and they want to replicate it. So the danger for us now is we need to bring easy to use product to these people, because they don't even want to fly. They just need the data, and they need to have an easy to use hardware system so they can focus on the agronomical models they want to bring to their crops and where they're paid for actually.
Yeah, so we've got I think with the drones getting easy to fly, the cameras integrating pretty seamlessly into the drone in a lot of cases. So like the operational side, capturing the data seems to be getting easier and easier. It seems like there's still a gap in what to do after that happens.
Yeah, but actually the reason these companies jump on the technology now is because they have already hired some drone service provider during the last years. They have seen the data over their field. They are getting convinced that there is something they can take out of the data, and now they want to do it themselves. Also because companies like, for example, aerobotics are selling that kind of products and to bring down the cost instead of hiring somebody. It's not that expensive to hire somebody. It has more to do about the driving times and the delays. And now they want to buy the equipment to do it themselves and hire all these companies that have popped up in the last 2 or 3 years that provide some agronomical insights into the crops. So that's been a great help for us, so that these companies that actually have the money and the technology to bring into the drones with the multispectral sensors into their business pipeline, let's say. So that's what we're seeing right now here in Latin America.
So switching gears a little bit, you actually manufactured drones for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, but that was at the time that DJI didn't exist yet, or wasn't really known here, and it was a big question: how do we take a camera into the air? So you can do it with a manned plane, and if you want to have a drone, there was no drone, so the only way to do it was with a fixed wing. But there was nobody was really selling them, or the prices were like $40,000 for some fixed wing.
Right.
So that was really not possible. So once autopilots like Ardu Pilot came on the market, things got easier. So you can build your own drone. But building your own drone, I'm not. That's not my job, building a drone. But I did it anyway, with the risk that things go wrong. So that happened as well. So if you ask me what happened with that Red Edge number 12 I got from MicaSense, I think it's somewhere lost. Maybe it's already into the sea, but I lost it because the GPS disconnected, or I don't know what happened, but it flew away. And we had some announcements on the radio. Did you see this little white plane? If you want to have the plane, keep the plane, but there is a little red camera in it. Give that one back, please. But no news on that. So it just got lost.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, we did sold one of the quite maybe 60 of these planes here in Argentina, and some of these customers also had problems. Drone flew away because you have to actually, before each flight, upload the flight plan. So I remember we had a customer here, and we gave him a training here in Buenos Aires with a flight plan. This is how you need to fly the drone. He went back to Cordoba, which is like I don't know, 800 kilometers west. And he throws the plane away with the same flight plan from Buenos Aires. So the plane starts flying in the direction of Buenos Aires, and yeah, he lost it. But so we start calculating, okay, so the angle to Buenos Aires is this one. The battery, it will take more or less 50 minutes. So it should be around here. And it was there. He found it back.
Oh, you found
Yeah.
it. One thing I want to ask you, Erik, is so I think over the last year or two, you've kind of moved away from being end user facing, and you've been more reseller focused. I'd be interested to know just what makes resellers successful. Like what sort of resonates with the reseller and how they communicate with the customer. Like what's the most difficult part about getting the reseller to understand things that you've done over the last few years and like how to convey the value of the camera.
Yeah. Well, you got different kind of resellers, just the DJI resellers, survey companies that sell, and you get also just people that know a lot about agriculture and remote sensing as a whole. And it depends. I don't think there's like a general fit for all. This is like the kind of reseller that we really can work with. In the end, you need to work with people. So you just need to have the right guy. It might be the wrong company, but you need to have the right guy that can talk and that's genuinely interested in bringing this technology to the end users and who's actually passionate about this job, that can talk with with passion about what you can do with drones in agriculture. And that's the most important thing, to get people involved and that they can see the possibilities on how we can bring this to the market. So it depends on each country and actually also on every country. It's about people, like in any other business as well.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing the successful ones? I mean, is there a lot of in-person demoing going on, or is that not really necessary? Is it more just like show me the data that I can get, or is it more like show me how to operate the drone, or is it a combination of both?
Well, in the beginning, it's evolving. I remember a couple of years ago, people actually they want to see how the drone flies. Do that trick, fly that thing.
Yeah.
And they say, no, it's about the data. You don't need to fly it because it just flies away and that's it. The show is over.
It's exciting for about 30 seconds.
Yeah. So I think everybody now saw how a drone takes off. So that's done. And now it's all about the data, and it's about the price, and to see how we can interact with other kinds of technology, how we can complement the drone data with the satellite data and with the field data, and how we can connect it to the model. So that's why it's also very important that we keep on putting emphasis on the radiometric accuracy of our data, because that's the key to keep our product in the whole business process, so they can relate it to all the other kinds of technologies that are used currently to improve agriculture.
Yeah, makes sense. Steven, you've done some. You do a lot of test drone flying for MicaSense. How long are you excited about the drone flying until you get bored?
How long am I excited about the drone flying before I get bored?
You hit launch, and then at what point are you just like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the office?
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. Since it's all automated, when I tell people that I fly drones, they don't realize I'm like a pilot who just launches the plane and then just sits back and reads his Reader's Digest, as I assume they do. So yeah, you're right. Since some of the flights they're probably pretty short compared to what our customers do, but even 10, 15 minutes, it does get a little boring out there. I would say the harder part is the logistics of planning the flight and making sure everything's charged up and ready to go. It's like I imagine so many things are, where you spend most of the time planning and then the actual execution is very short. And that's what I tell people about when they go out in the field. Some people maybe have channel captures and do these other things that take just a minute or so, but really your time out in the field is very small compared to driving to the location and processing the data and doing the analysis. So really you should do as much work as you can out in the field, because it really is a really small part of the job.
Yeah. And just and that it's just like you're saying, it's so important to choose the right time going to the field, because if you can see that it's going to be cloudy or it's going to be windy for a couple of days, it has no sense going to the field and go back with bad data, because you travel and you can just do the flight only once. So it's better always to wait a couple of days to get better flight conditions and get good data, instead of doing it all 2 times.
Yeah, that reminds me, one time I went out to capture a sample data set and drove all the way out into the field, didn't have the little Apple cord that goes from the iPad to the controller, so couldn't fly. I had to drive all the way home. There's just all these little, I mean, especially with the multi-rotors, there are all these little components that you have to remember. If you forget one of those, then basically your time.
I think everybody who's a service provider with drones has this kind of stories, getting to the field and then, oh, I didn't bring the SD card.
Yeah.
It happens. And if you never had a crash with a drone, you actually didn't did a lot of flights. Hopefully it's happening each time less and less, but it's an adventure being a service provider, that's for sure.
To close things out, first of all, thanks for joining our episode 1 podcast, Erik. We really appreciate your time. We just thought we'd ask you a few questions to close out the episode. The first one is, you were born in Belgium, you've lived in Holland, you are now living in Argentina, you speak 24 different languages, something like that?
Yeah, no, not that much.
My question is if you had to move to the US, what state would you prefer to live in?
Yeah, that's really an interesting question, because I did think about it. I think, as like most Latin Americans, actually, they would prefer Miami, because it's most similar. It's like almost Latin America, it's not that much and the best from the US, many people say. So probably it'll be Florida, which is a very sunny, nice state with good connections to both Europe and Latin America. So probably that's going to be the spot to be.
Maybe one more. So I know this is my personal curiosity. I know you're into sci-fi, and I've been reading a lot of sci-fi books lately. What's your favorite either sci-fi book or sci-fi movie?
I love the question. Great. Yeah, actually, I like them all, because it's like the kind of movies and books I really like. But I've been watching this week a Russian on Netflix, and that's very now, because there is a pandemic going around in Russia. I don't know where they got the story from, but you got a pandemic and they travel through the snowy Russia up to the Arctic. It's like a road movie of a family in the middle of this pandemic, where people like almost convert to, not really zombies, but very close to.
Oh, you know what? I've seen the preview for that. I think I was flipping through Netflix the other day and I watched sort of the trailer for it. It looked very intriguing. They go to this sort of safe house compound type thing, like
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, and it gives you a nice window on Russia through this sci-fi movie. So I really like it, and also the scenery of post-apocalypse. Russia is full of those kind of places. So it's some really nice pictures. I want to say one more thing, actually. I got some comments from customers here in Latin America that have been speaking Steven and say, really, Steven gives such a great support and his Spanish is great. So I don't know if that's thanks to Google Translate or for your Spanish from high school, but you're doing a good job over here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my study abroad experience in Spain gave me a good advantage to use the Google Translate 10 years later.
Okay. Keep up the good job then for support. And I think everybody is very satisfied with your job over here, at least from what comes to my ears.
All right. With that, we can wrap things up for today. If anybody listening has any suggestions for topics or would like to guest on the podcast, please reach out to Drew at MicaSense.com. Thanks. Bye-bye.